Back to racing here at Joliet, Illinois, at Chicagoland Speedway. There's your leader, Thomas Schechter, followed by Sam Horn as part of the Penske team. Dan Weldon, the current points leader. Tony Kanaan sits in fourth. And Dario Franchitti, we've got a big yellow coming into turn 4. All kinds of debris, and it's the 33, the back end. That is Ryan Briscoe, who initially qualified on the pole. And as Jamie Little reported, after an infraction to his car during post-qualifying, he was disqualified, sent to the back of the pack. And there you see it in one of the Red Bull Cheever drivers. Looks like maybe Patrick Carpentier exiting his car quickly. He is moving, but Scotty, right now, the most important thing is to get him extricated from that vehicle.
Those cars are meant to come apart like that, Todd. I know it actually looks like it's just a mess. That's the engine front in the car, possibly. There's a lot of debris going on there. The bell housing and the transmission, it's made to break away from the cocoon, as we call it, the car. There you can see right there some oil fires starting, a lot of body work that's sitting on top of that. The engine must be somewhere else because it looks like it's possibly just the bell housing and the transmission. And the monocoque itself is where those guys are. And there's Koski Masura, the number 55, the Panasonic car that actually was involved in this. And he had a crash earlier in the weekend when he got hit from Thomas Enge's car out in practice. And disappointing for him because he finished 6th just last week at Sonoma. A great finish for him that he's had.
Well, Koski's moving. That's the important thing, Scott. And I want to correct myself. That's 51, Alex Barron, the Red Bull Cheever driver who got out of his car so quickly. Alex Barron actually walking down on the grass infield by pit in. Koski Matsura and Ryan Briscoe, the 3 cars right now that are involved, and it looks like Ryan Briscoe's car took the worst of it.
All that smoke that's coming out, that'll be actually extinguished by the Delphi safety crew right there as you see a look at the Red Bull target.
Well, here it is again. Here's how they come into 3, Scotty.
Actually, you can see on the very underside what a ride that was. Remember we had last year with Buddy Rice getting airborne coming out of turn 2 when they touched wheels. And here's the situation. Briscoe going underneath. Barron trying to come down on the racetrack. They both are going for the same piece of real estate. And what ends up happening is those rubber tires touch, and then all of a sudden the car starts to go in the air. Remember, we're going 215 miles an hour. Look at all the debris that's going all around the racetrack. This will be a long cleanup time. And there's the engine separated from both the transmission and the monocoque where the driver sits. That's what we call kitty litter right there going on the racetrack, Todd, to dry up all that oil that starts to come off of those vehicles.
Let's look at this one more time and see if we can see the genesis of this accident.
Now looking straight ahead, you can see the cars just starting to come together. A little bit of rub, smoke coming off the tires when they touch. And then all of a sudden, as we're riding on board Scott Dixon's car, he sees this. He was actually a spectator in the crash just last year. Now watch those left side wheels. Those are down on the flat underneath the white line. He did a great job keeping that car straight with 2 wheels on the 18-degree banking, 2 wheels on the flat down on the entrance.
Oh my, look at that. And that is the fence by the safer barrier. And Scott, as a driver, you see your teammate have an accident like that. I mean, that was reminiscent of what happened to Kenny Breck in Texas.
Something like that. You can see the safer barrier was hit very difficultly on the right-hand side. Probably those are big marks that you see there, all from the wheels on those 2 there. And the thing now for these guys is to get the fence fixed, and that's going to have to be the situation where it's going to take quite a few laps to repair that.
Well, if we can look at it one more time, the first angle we had as they are coming into turn number 3, and they're starting to make their way into turn 4. It looks as though Alex Barron comes down on Ryan Briscoe, and then somehow air gets underneath Briscoe's. Remember at Indy back in May, what happened to Sam Horner's Jr.'s car. Well, it does not take much to disrupt that front end.
In the opening of the show, we talked about spotters. Spotters have to talk to the drivers all the way around and say to Barron, 33 Briscoe's starting to look. He's starting to look. He's on the low side, and you can see a piece of the bodywork from the target car right there in between the concrete cement wall and the safer barrier, just where the padding is there. This is going to be a long break.
Well, before we assess blame, we want to make sure that all the drivers and those involved are okay. Let's check in quickly with Jamie Little.
Well, first of all, Chip Ganassi went back to the medical center where they will bring Ryan for precautionary reasons, and we'll get a story to you as soon as we get an update. But now I'm with Eddie Cheever. He's the owner of the number 51 car that was involved in that incident. Eddie, what did you see?
I saw like everybody else did just from the TV cameras, but it looked like Briscoe went over the back of Alex's car. And Alex is fine. He got out of the car. It's very disappointing, obviously, but I hope he's okay. I mean, he did. There was no. Alex was up high enough, and he just clipped the car and went over the top of him. That could have been a very, very bad accident. Very disappointed for Alex, obviously. Those are the sort of accidents that should never happen.
Well, Eddie Cheever, of course, been a driver in open wheel racing. Scott Goodyear, as you know, for many, many years, he's seen a lot of accidents, and we hope all is well. Obviously, it's good news that Alex Barron is okay.
Jamie, that was one of the things Brian Barnhart, the president of the IRL, talked about in the drivers' meeting this morning. He said, folks, we just have to get to the end of the event. Remember, your open-wheel cars are running 215, almost 220 miles an hour in the draft. The length of a football field in about 7/10 of a second. Things happen very, very fast here, Todd, and it's not that you get a chance to think about it. It just comes from reactions.
Well, whether or not that was a case of miscommunication or not enough communication, it was certainly triggered by Alex Barron and number 33, the rookie Ryan Briscoe. And for Ryan Briscoe, this has not been the best of years.
Well, you know, he had the situation where he was on pole, and then he turned around and gave a little wave to the folks there. So he's alert and moving, which is a great sign. I've been through accidents before, Todd, and I can tell you that when you hit something as hard as you did there, you just sort of know where you are, but you certainly have a lot of aches and pains. And with a weekend off before we get to Watkins Glen on September 25th, he will have some time to recover.
Well, we'll watch and listen this time on the replay.
Wow. You can hear the, you know, just the ability to actually read all that in front of you and make sure you don't make a drastic move and then put yourself into the wall when you're Scott Dixon driving along like that. That's what I talked about before. It happens so quickly, Todd. It's just a reaction. There's no thinking about it. The monocoque itself is going to be picked up there by the safety crew. And you can see there's the cockpit area right in there. The engine itself usually is in the back section attached to the back of the monocoque, and then you end up having the transmission in the back end, and there's the engine itself sitting there, and they'll start to collect all the pieces and start to get that off the racetrack. We showed you before with the rear wing and the rear tires and the bell housing and the transmission, and all these pieces are just like projectiles going at 200 miles an hour when this is really a deformable structure that just breaks apart.
As bad as it looks, though, the bottom line is the monocoque did its job.
Monocoque did its job. The car did its job because it actually absorbed the impact that the car was given.
Wow. We are going to get an update on Ryan Briscoe and find out and shake everything down on this memorable day in September. We'll step aside, take a break. We'll be back to Joliet after this short break.